Okay, hi. Hello. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Ruby. This is Ruby Red, and today we are starting a vlog. I'm starting it today. It's like 4 o'clock, and I am done with my first semester of graduate school. Oh my god. I'm actually, I guess, not done because I still have a group project that needs to be submitted tonight, but I don't think that the other members of my group are gonna give their final revisions to the project until like 7 or 8 today. So that still has to be submitted, but all my stuff is done. So I'm counting it as done. Okay, I'm done. And I have 3 weeks between now and when my summer class starts. And I plan to take full advantage of that time off by reading as much as I possibly can. So I have a bunch of vlogs like in the works in my head. I have so many plans, so we'll just have to see like how much I can actually get done. But the first thing we're gonna do is read some arcs. This is a NetGalley reading vlog. Sorry. Hi. I have been requesting arcs for quite some time, and I have not been reading them for quite some time. Specifically, I don't think I've read an arc since January, and I have a whole bunch of them just sitting on my Kindle, and a lot of them are already published, and I just it's just a weight on my shoulders that I don't really need. So I plan to read the rest of them and then either delete my NetGalley or just be a lot more selective in the books that I actually request. So right now my NetGalley ratio is at about 67%, I think. The ratio of the amount of books I've been approved for that I have actually read and given feedback on. And there are 12 books that I have been approved for that I have not yet given feedback on. And I don't know how many of them I have to read to get my ratio to pass 80%, but that's the goal of this vlog. We will stop the vlog when my ratio reaches 80%. And I don't know how many books that's gonna be. I could do the math and figure it out, but I'm not going to. We're just gonna find that out together. And I think something that's given me problems in the past with my arcs is that I've been so committed to trying to read them in publication order because that just made the most sense to me. But I'm a mood reader, and so of course that doesn't work for me. But I think what I'm gonna do for this vlog is to just pick my next read in a different way every time, regardless of publication order. We're just going in. And I haven't decided what those ways are gonna be. I have a couple of ideas. We're just gonna see what seems the most fun in the moment, because right now I'm already more than halfway done with one of those 12 unread arcs, and that is Emma of 83rd Street. I forget who it's by, but there's the cover. There's 2 authors. Now, it's become apparent to me that I need to lay off the Greek retellings. Okay, the Greek myth retellings are not doing it for me. They haven't done it for me in a while. I think we peaked with Circe. It's been all downhill from there. I have enjoyed a couple of others, but for the most part, nothing has been blowing me away in that genre. So okay, fine. I had admitted to myself that that's where I was at as a reader, and that's fine. But what I hadn't considered were other retellings. And in fact, I knew that I was planning to soon-ish read 2 classic literature retellings versus the Greek classics. And one of those is Demon Copperhead, which is based on David Copperfield, which I have never read, and I don't actually know that story, and I am enjoying Demon Copperhead, but that's not really part of this vlog. So that's that. But the other thing is that I have this arc, Emma of 83rd Street, which I knew was going to be published at the end of this month, and so I did want to read it before then. If I can, I should. And I was excited about it because I love Emma, and this is an Emma retelling, and that's my favorite Jane Austen book, and my favorite Jane Austen movie. The 2020 Emma is superb. Anyway, I didn't know that I'm done with retellings overall when I started this book, but I think I am, because there's just so much that has to go right for it to work, and at least in this book, it's really not. Because what makes Emma, the story, so good is that Emma is hilarious, and she is extremely not self-aware. And then you add in all of the class structures of that time, and also the like polite society rules, and then you can kind of like, you can have a lot of fun with that. Jane Austen had tons of fun with that. But then when you're going to take that story and you're going to package it as a modern present day situation, like you need to come up with a new reason for everything to be like that. Because so much of that story's plot is like furthered by rules of etiquette and the class system and the needs to marry well and to marry like, you know, strategically, I guess. And those are not really the same concerns that we have today. We have different social concerns, and those can be used sometimes in place of the old concerns. And someone I think did a really good job doing that is Sonali Dev in those Jane Austen retellings. Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors is terrific, and it gets the same point across without it being confusing, or not confusing, but like it doesn't totally line up. You have to really force the story to work in a modern day if you're not gonna like really revamp the whole situation. So I don't think that this arc has really done that at all. So in this book, we're following Emma. She's rich, she's an art student. She wants people to think she has substance, but they don't. And she has a crush that she doesn't know about even on her neighbor Knightley. And she makes a new friend who is like a poor country girl in the big city who she like, you know, gives her a makeover and tries to set her up and, you know, make her way as a woman through society without like a partner and with a weird relationship with her dad. And it's just like, when you're gonna make that the setup, like we already have Clueless, so we didn't need this, is kind of where I'm standing, is where I'm landing, I guess. Like, I just don't feel like this story is like inventive in any way. It's just like, it's the bare minimum of like turning the plot line of Emma into something that could happen in 2020's New York City. And I just don't care. And maybe if you have never read Emma, you don't know the story, and you somehow have never seen Clueless, then you wouldn't care as much, but everybody's seen Clueless, come on. And yeah, it's just like, it's not very good writing in my opinion. So I'm gonna continue reading that because I think I only have like an hour left according to my Kindle, and I'm about to be in my reading era again. So I'm gonna knock that right out, and then I'll pick something else. But yeah, retellings to me, they're done. You know, it's not enough to like give the same plot like a new shape. Like you need to work with it. Like you need to reimagine, reconfigure. That's why Cersei worked so well, because it was a new thing using pieces of the old things, you know? Okay. Welcome to the vlog. Okay, so here's what happened. Yesterday when I finally sat down to read that Emma arc, I just didn't want to. Like, for all the reasons that I had talked about, all the things that I didn't like about it, I was like, yeah, why am I gonna make myself read this? I don't want to. I don't think, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I don't think it's a good book. I think it was like sloppily put together and like not, like there's just so many better books that I would never recommend this to someone. So for that reason, I decided to DNF that book, and I haven't actually written up my feedback yet, which is going to be basically everything that I already said to you. Where's that little guy? Okay, so I won't have my updated ratio for you until I do that, which I will do later today, and I will fill you in on the standing. But I did go ahead and pick my next book. I just asked Kayla, who helped convince me to DNF the book, to pick a number between 1 and 10, because that's how many arcs I had left. I actually had 11 after this Emma one, but one of them is a sort of sewing like tutorial book, and I don't want to review it, bless you, until I make something from it, and I'm not going to do that right now. I just have a list organizing all of those in publication order, so I asked Kayla for a number from 1 to 10, and she said number 7, and that was, oh my god, this book, which has a title that's long and I can't remember it. It's like Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea. Could that be the title? Anyway, it's a pirate book. I can't tell if it's fantasy or not. It's like historical Chinese pirates, but I don't know if it's like a fantasy-ish situation or if it's just like historical fiction. I read approximately 3 pages last night, so off to a great start, but yeah, we're on to our second arc already. Carmen just sneezed so wow. Okay, so I just submitted my feedback for Emma of 83rd Street, and that brought my ratio up to 70%. So that's the update for tonight. I am now gonna actually be working on a physical book that I am reading, but I will also read some of my new book, which is Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea by Rita Chang Epig. So I will have more to say about that hopefully tomorrow. Okay, so I don't really like this pirate book. I'm only like 8% into the book, so I'm not done. I'm gonna read a bit more tonight, hopefully a lot more tonight, and then maybe I'll have some feelings on it, but I just like, I want to read stuff that I'm obsessed with, and I'm not obsessed with this so far. I did do a bunch of research because I just did about the pirate that this is. I don't know if it's based on or about, like I'm not sure like how much is certain about this pirate, but it is a real historical figure from a period in China where there were a lot of pirates, and like her marriage and her husband's death and her like what happens next situation with the fleet and all of that, like that's all based in reality. So I think this is just historical fiction, and it's another book in this trend of like looking at a historical female figure and wondering what their life might have been like, what kind of person they might have been, and what kind of story they would tell about their own life. Like, I don't know. I think a really good example of this genre is The Book of Longings, which is about a fictional woman actually. But anyway, so I did so much like Googling and reading online, and her name in the book is Shek Young, but she had like 3 other nicknames that, like, nicknames is probably not correct. She had other names. I just don't know enough about historical Chinese nomenclature or modern Chinese nomenclature to know what the heck is going on there. But the writing is like not very good. Like the actual, the language like is not doing a lot for me. A lot of the sentences are very clunky. It just feels not like necessarily unedited really, but just like there's only so much you can do in editing if like you're not that good of a writer. So I might just think that this author is like not a good writer, or not like that good. I always feel bad saying something like that because like I couldn't write a book. I couldn't write a book at all, like so beyond me. So impressed that anyone is ever capable of doing so, but I only want to read like the good stuff. So this so far isn't the good stuff, but it would really be embarrassing for me to DNF 2 books in this ARC vlog. Because yeah, I do try to only request books that I do actually want to read, although I have some ARCs that I don't want to read. But this wasn't one of them. I was excited about this one. So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading it. Okay, so I have been trying to get myself to pick up my pirate book like all night, and I don't want to. I told myself like I would get to 15% and then decide if I wanted to keep reading or not, but like the idea of having to make myself read to 15% just sounds horrible right now. Like I just don't want to read it, and so I'm like, maybe I'm not gonna DNF it officially. I will still get to it eventually, but I think I just need to pick a new arc because otherwise this vlog is going to go on forever because I don't want to read that one. So how should I pick the next one? I could do a color wheel. I could do, what if we do last letter, first letter, like the last letter of that. Let me see if I have an arc that starts with the letter. What's the last letter of this book? Something the sky, red as the sea. S-E-A. So if I have a book that starts with A, I have no idea. I'm gonna have to check. I'll be right back. I'm gonna see if I have an arc with a title that starts with A. Okay, so I do have an arc that starts with A. It's called A Cryptic Clue by Victoria Gilbert, I think. And this is actually weird. I feel like I probably requested this by accident because it sounds like it's a cozy mystery, which I do not like. So anyway, I went on Goodreads to see like what it was about, and the plot is a mystery. This 60-something-year-old retired librarian gets hired by someone to catalog his vast personal library, and I guess his house is just like packed full of books. So as she's like going through the books to start cataloging them, she finds a body and has to solve the mystery. Which sounds like fine enough. Cozy mystery, not my thing at all, but libraries we like. So I think I'm just gonna read the first chapter of that tonight, at least, and like maybe, yeah, I'll read the first chapter and then I'll come right back and let you know if I'm gonna keep reading it or not. Okay, so I did just read actually the first 2 chapters of this book because they were very short. And yeah, it's about a librarian. She gets this new job. Her new boss, whose collection she's going to be cataloging. It's a collection is focused on like mysteries, the classics in the genre, etc. So that's like fun, you know, tie into the actual book. And the new boss who has the collection is you know, in his 30s. He looks like a British supermodel and he has rose gold eyelashes, which is weird description. But yeah, he comes off like very prickly, like unpleasant, but like maybe he doesn't mean to be. And yeah, they just sort of talked about the job and that was kind of it. But I'm gonna keep reading it tonight. It's like the chapters are short. It feels like it could be fun, but it's as is typical of the genre, in my opinion, it's overwritten. It's like it's a little much to me. It's like subtlety who. So I'm not expecting to be floored, but I am intrigued enough, I guess, to carry on reading it. It's definitely more intriguing to me than the pirate book is at this time. So, okay, we need to talk about this book. I have read, I think, almost 20%. I'm gonna keep reading it because I kind of just like want to see maybe how bad it's gonna get, which is like not maybe the best attitude, but I don't want to DNF like basically a 3rd book in a row in this video. So I'm gonna try not to, but I do have a lot of thoughts about it. Basically, it has something happening in it that is a complaint that I make, I think, anytime I try to read a cozy fantasy, which is nobody talks like that, and especially not everyone talks like that. Something that keeps happening is that in conversation, first of all, the conversation is like a 10-year-old writing a sitcom. Like that's not how people communicate. Like somebody will make like a pun or like a joke, you know, nothing crazy. Okay, just like a little, say something kind of funny. And the other person will have to be like, I see what you did there. Like, let's just move on. Okay, Ruby from the future is back because I really stumbled through my explanation of what was giving me the ick about this situation in this book, and it's much later and I have tried to gather my thoughts a little bit more efficiently. So I don't like that this character was clearly characterized as an autistic character. It was even referenced that, you know, he hasn't ever been evaluated to potentially receive a diagnosis. So it's being acknowledged that he, presumably the people around him, have considered the possibility that he is autistic or has something going on, some sort of neurodivergence, and yet he's still being referred to as such a jerk. He's still being portrayed as like, you know, he's so insensitive, like he's so rude, he's so arrogant. So if you want to write a jerk character to be your main character, I think that's fun, and I think that it would have been fine to have that in this book. I think that is like a fun foil for the very nice and diplomatic Mrs. Hunter. I forget the other character's name already. That would have been fine, but to do it in a way that is so clearly autistic coded just really gave me the ick. And I didn't feel like it was done in a way that was opening up a conversation. I didn't feel like it was challenged at all, that people just thought that he was, you know, a bad person. So I did not like that at all. It's just something that I wanted to note because I feel like I have read other books that have the same phenomenon in them, where there is a clearly autistically coded character and they are just like described as like, oh, so weird, such an oddball, when like that's offensive, right? Like to be saying, yeah, they're neurodivergent, but they could at least act normal, right? Like, but I don't know. I'm not autistic. I don't know. So that's where I'm at. I'm not loving it at all, but I'm kind of having fun hating it at this moment. So I'm not gonna give up like right now. We'll see. It's actually a really beautiful day for the first time in a while. It's been just like a little bit chilly and overcast, but it's like really sunny right now. So I'm gonna take my Kindle and I'm just gonna go sit outside somewhere and read. All right, I finished Mr. Clue's Mystery. What is it called? A Cryptic Clue. I finished it last night. I really slammed through the second half of that book, I gotta tell you. Basically, once I had reached that halfway mark, the plot became interesting enough, or like I was invested enough in the plot to not care about the atrocious writing. So that was good. At least it let me really move quickly through the rest of the book. And, you know, I really was like engaged and, you know, a little bit on the edge of my seat about like who actually done it, because there were so many suspects and all of them had, you know, a good reason to do it. I think also part of it was that in the beginning, I was just being introduced to so many characters, and those introductions and like explanations of like how this person fits into the narrative were so grueling to get through. It was not interesting to read because of the writing, so that by the time we got to the halfway point, we weren't having to do that whole introduction thing anymore. It was just like about the actual story, which was a lot less atrocious. Anyway, I think that the way that it wrapped up was like fine. There were some elements like thrown into this kind of towards the end. Like there, obviously, like when you're finding out like the why, like it was absurd. It was a stretch. It was like too much stuff was exposed like at the very end, I think, for my taste. I don't even know if that's true. I didn't like this book, so it didn't matter how it ended. Like I wasn't gonna like it because I already had spent so much time not liking it. Like the ending wasn't gonna turn that around for me, and it didn't. I'm not gonna rate this very high. I think I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I know, like I'm not gonna try Cozy Mysteries again because it's not fair to anybody. But I will write my review and post on NetGalley and Goodreads, and then I can update you about my percent. But I don't think we're gonna hit 80 with that book. So last night, right after I finished, I thought that I was gonna read a little bit more at night, and I read 2 pages of my next book. So I went ahead and I did my next, like how I'm picking my next arc that I'm reading, and I just put all of the unread arcs, not including the one that I soft DNF that I might come back to, into a spinner wheel. Let me just go over here. Here's the spinner wheel. And I spun the wheel and I got The Guest by Emma Cline. And I started it. I don't know what it's about actually at all. And I didn't read her last book, but I read The Girls and I really loved it. So when I saw The Guest on NetGalley, I was like, oh yeah, that'll be fun. And then I got it. I was like, okay. So yeah, finally reading that. I don't know what it's about. I did just find out that I have only 3 degrees of separation from Emma Klein. Kind of crazy. And yeah, I'll just keep you posted on like how reading that goes. And I will jump back in a few minutes once I have written my NetGalley review. It probably won't be in a few minutes. I'll probably do that in a few hours. But once I have sent my feedback, I will let you know what our updated percentage ratio is. Okay, thank you. Goodbye. Okay, I just put my review of The Cryptic Clue into NetGalley and I am now at 72%. So this vlog is so far from over. I am about 35-ish% of the way through The Guest. So I'm ready to sort of talk about what it's about. So basically it's about this girl, Alex. She's kind of a drifter, I guess. Like she has a talent for just like manipulating people, I guess. And so far she's been, it seems like, making her way basically by manipulating people. And we're not really sure how she got to this point, but she has basically nothing except her like acting ability and her ability to come off as really put together. So she's able to have these like start these relationships with older, wealthier men who can then like basically give her a place to stay. And that's what's happening at the very beginning of this. She is spending the summer like in the Hamptons or something with her boyfriend, who is like older and really rich and basically only likes her as long as she is like exactly one specific kind of person, which she's like able to perform that, and she just like learned what he wanted her to be, and she is being that so that she gets to live in his beautiful house and he buys her things and everything is fine. And she also is sort of being haunted by somebody from her past named Dom, and we're not really sure what happened, but it sounds like she like betrayed Dom or like something went down, and she's really scared of Dom catching up to her and like finding out where she is and getting revenge, I think. So she's sort of dodging this past while she's trying to like play this perfect, you know, entertaining, fun young girlfriend. And then it kind of crumbles and she now has to just like find her way again. So yeah, she's a drifter. She's making her way. She is lying. She is stealing. I am really enjoying it. It's, in one way, it's reminding me a little bit of The Idea of You. I'm hesitant to say that because it's not really the same relationship dynamic at all as that book, but something about how conscious she is of how she is acting and how she's being perceived and how her relationship looks to the people around her, like making sure everything is, you know what, actually it's really a lot more like The Lost Daughter. And I bet that was a big influence on this, to be honest. I'm sure Emma Klein has read that. I think that's maybe a better comparison because it has that like hazy kind of like a lost feeling that like, you know, where am I going? What am I doing? Like just like floating around, feeling unsure, uncertain, but it's kind of bad. Like the feelings are bad. Yeah, so anyway, I really like it, and I will just pop back in probably once I finished it, and then we'll see what my ratio is. Okay, yeah, I'll be back later. It's me once again because I actually never told you my final feelings about The Guest, and I'm about to talk to you about picking my next book. So let me just tell you how that wrapped up. It was one of those books that was just kind of a wild ride. I felt uneasy the whole time. It did continue to give me that like summer feeling, but in a bad way. Not in a bad way, but in like an ominous kind of anxious way. So I really liked that. I thought it was a great, like, a summer read with some edge is I think how I phrased my NetGalley review. And I liked the way that it was written. I loved the way that it ended. There was some stuff in this book going on regarding consent and mental health treatment and or lack of treatment, and some mental health stigma stuff as well. So if any of that is something that you want to tread carefully around or you don't want to read, I would stay away from this. And you can DM me for clarification on any triggers that I ever mention. I'm happy to give like specific details if that's helpful to anyone. I just don't want to put them into the actual video for spoiler reasons, but I will always explain any of that to you in as much detail as I can recall. So that's my message to you from the future about the guest, okay? My NetGalley ratio has reached 74%, so we are not at 80 yet. And after I finished the guest, that was the third arc that I had given feedback on since I had said I needed to finish 3 arcs before I could request anything. I just said this to myself and some friends in a group chat. And so once I finished that, I did go ahead and request 2 books that I saw on NetGalley that I have been highly anticipating that I really do want to read. So if either of those come in before we hit 80, that's going to be an unfortunate setback. And I wasn't thinking about that when I requested them. So oops. But I decided to start my next arc, and I picked the arc based on length because I knew that the next arc that I was going to read would be able to count for a prompt, a really helpful prompt in Wonderthon. I decided to just pick the shortest one and go with that. So the shortest arc that I have right now is Greek Lessons by Han Kang, and I have read 25% of it already today. So I don't know what I thought this was about or if I thought it was about anything, but so far I think it is 2 perspectives. Initially I didn't realize it was 2 perspectives. I thought it was the same narrator, but now I'm beginning to suspect that it's 2 narrators. And one of them is, I think, a woman who has lost the ability to speak, like slowly, or like it comes and goes. And she is taking Greek lessons from the other narrator, who we are like reading from his childhood and then his adulthood when he is teaching Greek classes. And he is going blind. And in his youthful storyline, there's another character that he has like an obsession with who is deaf and doesn't speak, I think. So it's a whole lot of like various communicative, I guess, limitations is like what's like tying all these characters together. And I think it could be very interesting to see how that pairs with some of the aspects of the writing about language. Like not only is this book translated, but the Greek lessons, she's talking about thinking about different languages and how language evolves and like, and having and not having language, like it's all just is very interesting. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I am 25% of the way through, like I said, so I'll be back once I finish it, and I think I'm gonna really like it. All right, arc vlog. I'm back because I finished The Vegetarian. No, I finished Greek Lessons. I'm just gonna give it 3 stars. I felt meh about it by the end. Like I liked where it seemed like it was gonna go at the beginning, but let's just say if I were gonna compile this book, the logic score would really bring it down. I just couldn't really follow it happily. Like I don't know, I don't think I was supposed to be able to follow it, but I just like the narratives kept getting confusing. I feel like one of them was in maybe a weird tense and that was throwing me off, but I don't know enough to identify that, especially not in hindsight now that I have closed that book. I don't know, there was stuff about like communication and connection and intimacy and memory, but I just like the way that it all came together it just was confusing to me. I didn't really enjoy it. So yeah, the first half I really did enjoy, but then the second half I was like, what? So it's a 3 for me, dog. I I don't know what I thought, because The Vegetarian, which is the other book by this author that I have read and really liked, that book is weird. So I don't know why I didn't like anticipate that this would be weird. But anyway, it's over now. I read it and I sent my feedback in. And so now my NetGalley ratio is 77%. And I have not been approved for anything else. So if I can finish, I think if I finish one more book, we'll be able to end this vlog. But not if I get approved for something before that happens. So the next book that I'm going to read from my ARCs is going to be Something Spectacular by Alexis Hall. I read Something Fabulous by Alexis Hall, which is like the prequel, or not, they're companions. And I really liked it. I like Alexis Hall's rom-coms. I think they're fun. And Something Spectacular is the next shortest arc that I have right now. Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea is like 20 pages shorter, but I don't want to try that again right now. So we're gonna read a little rom-com, see if I'm feeling that, and go from there. So I think that this one is gonna get into some, like, is somebody gender fluid in this book? It's a queer romance. It's like historical Regency. I think maybe like, is one of the characters Polly? Is that what's going on? I don't know. We're gonna find out. So I'll be back once I find out. Okay, hello. I have finished half of Something Spectacular today. Is that what it's called? I've been doing some reading sprints, and I knew that like a rom-com would read really fast. That's why I picked it, but I didn't know how fast. I am flying through it and I'm having such a good time. I'm having so many feelings, which is something. So I'm gonna try to talk about it. This is about, so the first book in this installment was about Bonnie and Valentine, and this book is about Bonnie's twin sister Bella and her sometimes lover, sometimes friend, Peggy. So it's mostly about Peggy. Peggy is non-binary and like fluidly presenting, I guess. Sometimes Peggy presents more masc or more femme, like she's comfortable both ways, depending on the day. So there's that element of like fluidity for her. And there's another character in this, Orfeo, who is a singer, who's a castrato soprano singer, and is also non-binary. And the two of them are sort of like having a very interesting connection, because like Peggy's never known anybody else who was not a man or a woman, and Orfeo is so comfortable, I guess, with their identity and themselves. And so like that element of like just like connecting on a good little level there, we love to see it. But also, you know, Peggy's been in love with Bella, and Bella is aromantic and sort of struggling to come to terms with that. And, you know, Peggy's also struggling to come to terms with that, basically. And then like Bonnie is just like deeply, deeply in love with his Duke, and wants everybody else to be in love too. But it's like, it's complicated. There's so many moments of not only like love, romantic, but love, friendship, and like it's just very a lot to me. It's giving me the warm fuzzies. I love everybody. I love the opera. I've literally never seen an opera in my life. And gestures and supportive friends, and like finding yourself, and then also having to be yourself after you found yourself. Like, it's a whole thing, and I'm really enjoying it. And I like it so much better than the first one. I want to stress that, because I found Something Fabulous, and this is Something Spectacular, So the first one, Arabella, was so annoying to me, and the plot didn't have the right rhythm for me. But this one, it's hitting so good. It's so funny also. Alexis Hall, I think, is a hilarious writer. It's a rom-com, but it's set in the Regency period, but, you know, with all modern kind of, a lot of modern language and that sort of thing. So it really just like is making fun of the stuffy sort of social mores and rules and the period stuff. But just like it makes it fun. Like sometimes I don't always love historical romance because of this element, where sometimes I feel like it's just a little too modern, a little too what have you. But I think that Alexis Hall writes historical romance like tongue-in-cheek enough, I guess, for me to really enjoy it. I think it's just, God, it's so funny. And he picks the worst names. Everybody's name is like, it's just like, it's a joke. Everybody's name is a joke. It's so funny. Hold on. Let me actually say some of the names to you. We've got, of course, Sir Horley Comewithers. He was in the first one. As well as Lord Clusterpick. And we also got to meet Miss Drearingbowl and Miss Stoddingplonk. Like, come on. A butler named Tea-Spout. It's so funny. It's all so funny. So, I'm really loving it, and I'm gonna go back to reading it now. Okay, thank you. Goodbye. All right, so I finally am ready to talk about the rest of Something Spectacular. I swear I did this already, but I can't find that footage, so I'm just gonna talk about it again. I finished it kind of a while ago, so I've definitely been sitting with my feelings on the second half of that book, because when I initially talked about it, I had read the first, like the beginning part, and I really liked it. So I did still really like the characters and the dynamics and stuff, and a lot of the like friendships and the way that like relationships aren't always cut and dry, like all of that stuff I still really liked. I still thought it was hilarious, but I felt like a lot of the plot for the second half of the book like didn't add up. I think there was a lot of like convoluted plot stuff going on just to get us to this end. I don't want to spoil the ending of this book, but there is something that happens at the end that is, there are some absolutely bananas justifications for. It just made it seem overly complicated to me. I didn't think we needed any of those justifications. I was like, if you want the book to end like this, like it can just end like that. You don't need to like sell me on this whole scheme or whatever. So yeah, I felt weird about that. Definitely kind of weird. So the ending, didn't love, but I still did really, really like it. Anyway, once I gave my feedback for that, we were at 79%. So one more book. So that was actually kind of a while ago. I gave myself a bit of a break before picking my next book for this. I knew it was gonna be my last one, but I just like a lot happened during Wonderthon, so I gave myself some time, and when I was finally ready to pick one, it was like kind of late at night, so I just went quickly into the Discord, into the Rhodes chat, and I asked somebody to please react with an emoji to pick my next read, and I just picked an emoji that would correspond to all of the rest of the books that I had on NetGalley. And the first person to vote in that poll was Bailey from Team Rhodes, and she picked Unnatural Ends, which I used a puzzle piece emoji for because the front of it is a puzzle. And this is interesting because it is published, but it's one of the first arcs that I actually was approved for, but the publication date was getting pushed and pushed and pushed for like over a year. So I just kept putting it off because I was like, well, it's not going to be published soon, I don't have to read it. So I just kept not reading it. So then by the time it was time to read it, I couldn't remember a single thing about it. But it is a mystery. It's a murder mystery. I've read about 15% so far, and it is not gripping me yet. Basically a lord, I think, in like a smallish village in a, you know, a manor house that is like very much like cobbled together. Like it's like a lot of additions over hundreds of years made like this like monstrosity with all these secret tunnels and stuff. It sounds very fun, cool, whatever. And our main characters are the 3 children of this Lord Linwood. And they're all coming back to their childhood home. And the first chapters, I think, were from their childhood and like some of the games they used to play and how they had fun exploring this like big house. And then the current storyline is all of them coming back to the house because he died. And so it's Alan, Claudia maybe, and Roger, and then Roger's girlfriend, Iris. I was literally reading it 2 minutes ago and I already forgot everyone's name. Anyway, they all gather back in their childhood home. They haven't seen each other in a long time, you know, and it's a little bit weird. Like maybe their relationship, something happened to them, I feel like. The dynamics are weird. And so they're all together and it turns out their dad was actually murdered. The will had been revised something like 15 years before this death happened. And it says that everything should go to the wife, and then upon her passing, it can be split between the 3 children unless he is murdered under suspicious circumstances. Or I guess a murder is always, unless he's murdered. In which case, whichever one of the 3 children solves the murder gets everything. It's so ridiculous. So this is taking place in like 1920 or something. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous premise. And yeah, I'm not loving the writing. It has been hard for me to get into, but I think now that we're starting to like try and solve the murder actually, it's probably gonna pick up. It was just like a slow first 10%. So we'll see where things go from here, but this is gonna be my last book for this vlog. It better be. And to think that if I had just DNF'd that pirate book that I probably will never go back to, we could have been done by now. But it's fine. I'm gonna read Unnatural Ends, and then my NetGalley ratio will be so impressive. Can't wait. Okay, I'll be back. Maybe I'll come back at like 50%. The time has come to talk about Unnatural Ends. I DNF'd this book around 25%. I felt really bad about that because I've had this arc for so long, and the premise is intriguing. As I believe I explained, the inheritance will go to whichever of the 3 children solves the murder. Just a fun concept, but the execution was not good. Basically, I was finding that the chapters, some of them were present, some of them were, you know, flashbacks, and each of them was from a different perspective, one of the 3 children, but most of them, like, there would be several chapters in a row from one of the siblings, and then we would get one chapter from someone else, and then we would go back to him. And there were so many flashbacks to the war, references to the war, and it was almost coming off comical to me, the way that absolutely every single thought or anything that happened was like required a war flashback. That's just not really the kind of thing I like. And the women in this were so flat. Like the sister, I don't know a thing about her. Again, it was pretty early in the book, but I was just like so annoyed by the 2 brothers, and one of them had this like cool hot girlfriend who was also kind of a prop. And the lawyer, he was in the war, and it just like, I was dreading picking it up. So I stopped picking it up. It was like time to get into bed and read my ebook, but I was like, I would rather simply close my eyes and wait for sleep to come and take me away than read this book. So I decided to DNF it. I did submit my feedback and say this book was not very good. I gave some honest feedback about my feelings on the book, and in the time that I spent not reading this book and waiting for it to suddenly become interesting to me. I did get approved for a new book, The Future, I think it's called, by Naomi Alderman, who wrote The Power, which I didn't read, and Disobedience, which I did read. And the premise of this new book sounded good to me, so I did request it, and unfortunately, I did receive... It's not unfortunate, because after sending in my feedback and also getting approved for this book before I technically had submitted my feedback, I reached 80%. But before I had been approved for that, I would have hit 82%, I think. So even though I said that I had to read until my ratio was above 80%, we're done. We're done. I reached 80%. I'm so happy about that. I read some books that I really liked, and I DNF'd a bunch of books, and I'm probably going to DNF that pirate book too, but maybe I'll try again in another month or two. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me to fix my NetGalley score. I plan to remain very frugal with my requests in future so that we don't end up in this little pickle again. I do still have a couple of arcs to read. I do want to vlog my experience reading and reviewing my sewing book, but it was archived, so I have to get it from the library to use it. I actually might just buy myself a copy because I am really interested in what it's all about. Anyway, thanks for watching this vlog. I didn't think it was going to take this long. I think I started this right when I finished my spring semester, and I'm halfway through my summer semester, so it did take some time, but I'm proud of what we've accomplished together, and I appreciate you hanging out with me. So I will go now, and hopefully I will see you back here sometime soon for another video. Okay, thank you, take care, and goodbye.